The voice of Sherry. Durian Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene. You're back with me on Exploring Empathy in the Malaysian Society with Professor Dr. Alberto Gomes. He's the Emeritus Professor at La Trobe University in Australia, as well as the Global Director of Deep Network. Early on, we discussed a brief on the Deep Network, as well as some of his work and exposure with the Orang Asli in Malaysia.
Monday Morning Matters.
Perspectives from Southeast Asia.
Dr. Alberto, what were your findings when it comes to the Orang Asli communities here, when you work with them and live with them?
Okay, how much time do you have? Well, it's I've had the privilege of learning about the Orang Asli and learning from them ever since 1975. So, I've lived in a number of different Orang Asli communities.
Wow, since the 70s.
Since the 70s.
Must be a lot of changes.
There has been, and unfortunately, while the changes may seem positive to the eyes of someone who is imbued with modernization theories and modernization philosophy, I think in many ways Orang Asli have, their lives have been, in a sense, affected very adversely. So one project that I carried out was among a resettled group of people up in Kelantan, very close to the Malaysian-Thai border, close to the town of Jeli. I first visited this community in 1975, and then I went back on a regular basis, and in fact tried to go back to the same community once every 10 years. And in this research, which is a longitudinal research, I looked at the transformations in the life of the people. And since the time they were resettled in 1972, so when I first visited, it was just 3 years since their resettlement. Mm-hmm. They were enticed by the Malaysian government to move out of their home areas in the forest, and under the guise that, of modernization, so that, put them into nice little villages, a pattern like a Malay kampong, and then introduced to various agricultural activities, and in particular cash cropping of oil palm and rubber.
Was it successful?
Well, one would think that it's successful in the sense that, someone would say, well, now they're earning money. But I don't think it's successful in the sense that in the past they were self-sufficient. They were able to, feed themselves through the various forest activities. They did engage in some kind of forest trading. They, sold rattan and bamboo and other kinds of forest products for some of the money to buy the kinds of goods and food that they were unable to produce themselves. But what has happened now is they are, their lives are dictated by the market economy. And, I have a story where in the 1970s, the agricultural extension worker came to the community to teach them how to plant rubber. And, the department at that time, supplied them with rubber seedlings. So he was pointing out, he got one of the young boys to dig a hole, and then he pointed out to the people, now this is how you plant a rubber tree. Remove it from the plastic casing, and then just put the rubber seedling into the ground, and then cover it, and says that's very easy. Then an older man put his hand up and asked, so do you put the plant from the top down, or do you put it, as you pointed out? Because he was trying to make fun of it. So the agricultural extension worker then said, oh gosh, these people are really dumb. How can you put seedling the other way around? So and then in disgust, he just left the village.
I see.
So when he was about to leave, I turned around and I asked my Malaysian Aboriginal friends, what is all this about? I know you know how to plant trees. And what the old man had said to me, I thought was so poignant. He said, he says, look, we have to plant all these trees, then it takes a few years before it produces rubber. Then we have got to go and sell the rubber and sometimes the latex rather. And sometimes, after a hard day's work, we slip and we fall. All our latex would be spilled. And then when we go to the shops and sell it, they say, rubber is of low grade. They give us very little prices. And then the market, prices keep changing. And so he said to me, and it's so fluctuating. And then he said to me, I thought, which is really deep, he said to me, and when we go hungry, we can't eat rubber.
That's true.
And, he gave me a lecture on international market,
From someone who is not even a professor to give you a lecture on international market.
Yes, that's right, about prices and about the fluctuating prices that are determined by market centers. And I thought that this is a story that, in fact, very nicely, illustrates the point that being dependent on the cash markets, being dependent as consumers, as in a consumerist society, in fact, has brought a lot of different kinds of social changes. One in particular, it's an egalitarian society. People work together. Being introduced into cash cropping and a capitalist system, they no longer are egalitarian. There are some who are richer among the others, and they have used their wealth to have dominance and power over the other people. Mm-hmm. So there goes equality. And also the other fact is that they no longer cooperate because they want to keep the money to themselves. In the past, they would be involved in hunting, for example, when they shoot a wild pig. They bring the pig and they share it equally among everyone in the village. And today, you have got a pot of money that you've gained from selling some oil palm seeds. You're going to keep it for yourself. And so this is where it has, in many ways, that has got sort of adverse social implications, and the effects are such that the society has the kind of the sociability in the community has been destroyed.
But with the capitalist system that we have now, and it's going to be in a way that affect this marginalized group, how can they live a life that is peaceful, or the way that they have been living since the ancestry's time, without being feel that they need to force themselves to be to assimilate into the larger mainstream Malaysian society?
Well, they have been not just assimilated into the mainstream society; they've been dragged into it. Mm-hmm. And I think the issue here is that I'm not in any way suggesting that they should remain as they are. And why I'm not suggesting this is that it is far too idealistic, because humans, societies keep changing, keep transforming, and even myself, over the number of years that I've lived, you can see various sorts of changes in our lives. And, never did I think that I would sit here and talk to you through a device, So I think this is one of the things that these changes are inevitable, yes? But the point now is that in our global society, or even in wherever we live, we cannot go on changing the way we are, especially since there is a major clash that humanity is facing at the moment against nature and against the environment, against ecology. So those various things that we think about today, and many are concerned about climate change, for example. the way we use fossil fuels, and the way our whole lives are in fact fueled by unrenewable energy sources. And I think this is where we have to make some major changes, not only in Malaysia but right around the world. And these changes are not in any way I'm suggesting that we scale down our societies and lives, but in fact start to move away from an economic system that is obsessed, preoccupied with growth. So there are various economic movements that are going on in Europe, for example,
like degrowth movement.
Yeah, the degrowth, or I prefer the degrowth. The English translation tends to give this impression that you're going backwards, degrowth. But décroissance, the French word, in fact, represents a much better. I mean, anything that's uttered in French would sound better, I suppose. But in this case, décroissance, movements is one where the focus is not on growing. The focus is not on getting more and more things, but it is the focus is on better. So how can we improve our lives in terms of better quality stuff, better quality food, better quality products, rather than having mass produced and producing far more than we really need. And when we produce far more than we really need, we are made to feel that we actually need to consume more. And I think this is where Malaysian Aboriginal people, their lives are considered to be frugal. They do not have lots of things, but one very important lesson that we can learn from them is respect for nature. Respect for nature, as well as respect for fellow humans.
Is that how they think with their heart?
Exactly. So I'll give you one example. I have numerous examples. Now, when a hunter shoots a wild pig, the hunter runs directly to the wild pig before it takes its last breath, holds on to the snout of the pig and apologizes and say, "I'm so sorry for taking your life. Please forgive me for the cruelty I've committed to you." Now, okay, you would say, your listeners would say, yes, but they just gone and killed the pig. But what is the difference is that they actually have respect for the pig. Now, they're not going to go and kill 1,000 pigs because they can keep one for themselves and sell the 999 pigs and earn lots of money, because that's the kind of accumulative spirit that we have in a capitalist society. All they want is that just one pig to feed themselves and their family and their friends. And then, in other words, if there are 1,000 pigs there are 999 pigs that are able to continue living. Now, the point here is that it is also to do with greed. Now, we are conditioned, we learn, we are, in a sense, we find that we have become greedy. We're just not satisfied with what we have. We want to just go on accumulating, and that's very much part of the capitalist system. And so the point here is that how do we then, rather than being greedy, be generous? Rather than being focused on growth, focus on sustainability. So Malaysian Aboriginal people are generous. They share. They live sustainable lives, but most importantly, they have a kind of a democratic system where everyone is treated equally and fairly, and in fact, a society where they are, there is equality, and they try to maintain that equality. So what happens is that when you have a model that is being imposed on their lives that is unequal, a model that is unsustainable, a model that focuses on growth, a model that focuses on accumulation, an accumulative spirit, and that in fact destroys, all the various, what I consider to be the critical principles that humanity will need to adopt in order to get ourselves out of this bliss, out of this, totally insane way of living our lives.
For Malaysians, especially now we are at a juncture where of globalization, I would suppose. I mean, in this current 21st century, how can Malaysia learn from the Orang Asli when it comes to living a good life?
I have actually published a paper on this, and what I say is that we can learn the various normative principles of the Orang Asli, the various principles that I mentioned just now. Living sustainably, living in a way of generosity, sharing, living in a way that we respect other fellow creatures in this world. We respect the nature, we respect environments, we respect people. And I believe very strongly that their peaceful society is in fact predicated on their sustainability. Because if we live sustainable lives, then it makes it a lot easier for us to live, to live peacefully. It is precisely because of our unsustainability. If you look at Africa, for example, it is the wars, the civil strife that has taken place in these, very number of places there. But I should also point out before your listeners say Africa is a violent continent. No, it is not. It is. These are aberrations. There are just a few places where people are in war with one another. If you scratch the surface, you will find that it's actually about competition for minerals, competition for oil, and for all what we refer to as resources. Now, something becomes a resource when it has when it is commoditized, when it becomes part of an economic system. Now, the thing is that Malaysian Aboriginal people do not think of it as a resource. They think of it as a natural product that is part of the society. Then you have to ensure that you take care of it in the best possible way.
So it's more like they see it as an investment for the present and the future, rather than it's supposed to be just the wealth that is being accumulated for one person or for a group of elites.
Exactly. It is a communal, a very strong sense of community. Now, the other thing is this, like you and I, we feel that we have an ownership of the various things that we have. The car is our own. Our house, if we own one house, if we own our own house, we say this is our own house, right? We have a property deed and stuff like that. Now, Orang Asli don't, So, for example, when they are going to plant, I'm talking about traditional societies, traditional Orang Asli, I mean. So, if you're going to plant a plot, a farm, they go and seek the ground-dwelling spirit. So, among the Samai, for example, they will go and ask the Yani Kawul, who is considered to be the ground-dwelling spirit of the land that they want to plant on. And then they would say to the Yani Kawul, they will announce their intention to plant that area, and then off they go and they interpret dreams, and the answer to their request will come in the dream. And once they have interpreted, if there are good omens in the dreams, then that would be an indication that the Yani Kawul has provided them with the permission to plant that area. But what they know is that if they kind of destroy the land, if they put pesticides and inorganic, various kinds of chemicals into the land, then the Yani Kawul is going to be annoyed with them, and they're going to have poor harvest, but worse still, they're going to fall sick. Okay, and these are the kinds of beliefs that are natural. They're connected to the land. And most importantly, it also says that you do not own the land. The land is owned by a spirit. And the spiritual world owns the land. In other words, the spiritual world becomes very much like connected to the social. So in other words, it means that it is a community that owns the land. As an individual, you only have, usufruct rights. It is not permanent rights. You only have rights to the land when you are using it. And once you stop using it, the land reverts to ownership to the whole community. Now, isn't that wonderful? I know it sounds very socialistic and communist.
Well, Well, I think it's I think it's an idea that is Malaysians can explore for something that might be idealistic now, but in the future, when sustainable living is part of what society have to adopt, especially in the era of climate change, it could be something that is a reality.
Oh yes, indeed. I mean, I think very soon we are not going to have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It is either that we live our lives sustainably, and I should also clarify, when I talk about living our lives sustainably, I'm not talking about sustainable development, because the United Nations advocates sustainable development, which is an oxymoron. How can we have development which in fact promotes economic growth and at the same time trying to live sustainably? So this obsession, this preoccupation that humans have, nations have, countries have, like Malaysia, Australia, where I come from, any part of the world, this utter obsession with economic growth is going to, drive us over the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a lot of people, commentators, researchers are fully aware of this. But we have leaders who are in fact all they're concerned about is their own interest, their self-interest. They are not going to promote all these kinds of ideas that people like us are trying to promote, precisely because they are going to be the ones who are going to lose. Yeah, they're thinking in terms of short-term gain for themselves mainly, and not for the long-term gain of humanity.
That's true. Anyway, we'll need to take one short break. When we return, we'll discuss further on this as well as on the Deep Network.
You're now listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.